Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today we are talking a tale of two cities between the New York Rangers and the New Jersey Devils, as well as other news and notes around the NHL. Guys, as usual, thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Make sure that you check out our website down below, i80sports.com, for all of our content there, such as right now our NHL coverage, but you can also check out our NFL, MLS, NCAA football, NBA, and now our wrestling content. New year, new I-80 Sports. Well, actually, in a lot of ways, same old I-80 Sports in this regard, but check out our content there. While you're there, hit up the shop, get yourself a t-shirt as low as $8. It might not be the holiday season anymore, but it is tax return season. Maybe waste a tax return on some of our stuff down below. Oh, okay, now I'm begging. Anyway, if you're on Twitter, make sure you follow us down below at I80_sports NHL. And if you're following us already, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. Without you guys, we can't do this on a weekly basis. And one thing I should address right now is, yeah, we took the week off last week for New Year's because, A, not a lot of stuff going on in the NHL, but B, both Tom and I needed a break. We had a little bit going on in our lives that, took a little bit of, attention to. So we took the week off, but from hence here forth, we are back once a week for you guys. And hey, if you're here on YouTube, make sure that if you're on here already, subscribe, comment, like, all the fun algorithmic stuff to keep us rising and rising and rising, because we're going to keep pumping out content to you guys, and we've got new ideas up on the horizon. You don't want to miss that. I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how are you doing in this new year?
Doing well. Started a new job with making a little more money a year. So, yeah, it's a little bit different. Totally different. Dayton, New Jersey, and Elizabeth, New Jersey can't be any more opposites in terms of location. But a little more money, a little bit different hours. I'm still getting used to it. But all in all, doing well.
Congrats to that, bro. New job, new opportunities. That's more than awesome, man. And good luck in your new endeavors for sure. But you're not going anywhere in terms of the NHL show. You're still right here with us moving forward. We need our lead statistician here. All right. Speaking of which, it's time to get into our show. So that means it's time, as always, for our traffic report.
The I-80 Sports Traffic Report, where you can find all your news and notes from the week.
Hitting up that traffic report, as always here, guys. So first and foremost, we're going to be talking some negative news right now, and we might feel a little bit salty about this. I can already see it in Tom's eyes on this one, not going to lie. So, well, let's not beat around the bush, shall we? The World Junior Tournament has been canceled due to a COVID outbreak amongst multiple teams. The IIHF is contemplating a summer restart to the tournament right now. There's nothing set in stone in that regard, but let's talk about this right now. Tom, instant reaction to this. Was this the right call to cancel or postpone the tournament?
See, I don't know. I mean, in a way, yes, because you had an outbreak there, but the way this was set up was terrible. I read interviews with a few players, and they were putting these teams in hotels that had bars and restaurants in them that people were going in and out of. One of the hotels that Slovakia stayed in actually had a huge wedding there while the players were in the hotel. So these players did everything they were supposed to do. They quarantined, they masked up, they kept out of public as much as they could. And because of some imbeciles and some hotel owners that were greedy, their tournament, their place in the sun got taken away. For a guy like Shane Wright, who could have had his moment in the sun, who didn't have the greatest start to the tournament, I still think he's going to go number one. But this was really his time to shine. And now you got to think the team that picked Shane Wright in comparison to, say, the team that will pick Connor Bedard next year may have the, oh crap, we won the lottery in the wrong year. We're going to get the wrong number one guy. So it's sad. They are contemplating a summer restart. I like the idea. It's just a matter of when they're going to do it. They're talking about doing it in June. Well, where are they going to do it in June? Are they saying they want to go back to Europe and do it maybe because the seasons will be over there? Do they want to do it in Edmonton as kind of a poke at the Oilers, saying, oh, no, there's no way the Oilers will still be in the playoffs then? I know that's terrible, but I don't know. I would love to see it redone. on one condition. The games that were forfeits, wipe those out and let the teams play the games. The guys who passed the age threshold this year, waive that. Let them play. Do this tournament right. Get it over with in the summer. And you know what? It might be a nice lead-in to something that I'm going to discuss in a few minutes when we get on to our next topic. But yeah, I'm not saying these players should have been kept in a bubble like they were last year and like the NHL players were 2 summers ago. But why would you put hockey players who are in a huge tournament, who are hugely at risk to this disease, who are athletes, in a hotel with a ton of just regular human traffic, with weddings, with a bar and a restaurant, who these players walking to the bus, walking to get a cup of coffee, walking to go to practice, can have interactions with these people? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, to me, look, I think a summer restart makes sense on paper, but it does nothing for the prospects who use this winter tournament as a major pit stop for NHL scouts to look at them and properly assess them and see where their game is going. This is beneficial for someone like Connor Bedard because he's young enough where he's going to compete in the tournament again before he enters the draft next year. Not for someone like Shane Wright, where this was kind of his audition as the number 1 overall pick potentially for this upcoming draft. A summer tournament does nothing for him in this regard. Same for the likes of Brad Lambert, so on. If the IIHF, actually took proper precautions like they did last year, as Tom alluded to before, sure, you don't need to put these players in a bubble. But you don't put them in a hotel with all walks of life coming in and out while the players are trying their best to actually quarantine. Maybe not in Team Russia's case, but even still, if you know, look up that story on their way back from the tournament.
I feel so bad for the Czechs too. I feel so bad for the Czechs. They're sitting there going, what the hell did we do?
Yeah, exactly. The problem is hockey players get roped in with hockey players. Look, the dirty secret is, and well, not so dirty secret, Omicron wasn't a secret before the tournament started. So the IIHF, in my mind, should have been a little bit smarter when trying to plan quarantining protocols, where they were going to, put their players. I understand that they probably set this up, all the way back into the summer. I plan things as a teacher for a living. I understand that sometimes you don't have a lot of time to plan these things and you need to plan as far back as the summer to block these places. So I don't know. Maybe it just would have been playing it safe rather than sorry to set them up in a proper location in this regard. But hey, what do I know? That's why I podcast. Moving right along, the Winter Olympics, as we talked about a few weeks ago, the Winter Olympics will proceed without NHL player participation this year. And there have been multiple NHL players that have come out and voiced their disagreement with the decision, namely guys like Brad Marchand have voiced their disagreement. And it's a weird gray area for me because I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I disagree in either regard in terms of player choice to be able to go or not. Although there are interesting names declaring for the game right now. And Team Canada just released a potential list of players for the tournament, and their list includes the likes of number 1 overall pick from this past year, Owen Power, and the USA's list includes number 2 overall pick, Matty Beniers. So, I guess in my mind right now, Tom, would you still be excited if you still got to see some potential NHL players of the future play in the Winter Olympics?
Well, it's funny because you have all these people who argue about, the Olympics needs to be all amateurs. The Olympics needs to be all amateurs. Let me give you guys a little history lesson. The years that the Soviets and the Czechs were dominating this, they were not amateurs. They were not amateurs. They were soldiers. They were soldiers by name only and were professional hockey players dominating, while our country, even though we weren't really that good back then, and Canada was getting the short end of the stick. So you go back into the 70s, I discount all. And you know what? You Soviet fans, you Russian fans, you can get as mad as me you want about saying this. I discount all of it. I throw it out. I throw it in the garbage. In my mind, in the 70s, the Canada Cup was the international tournament to determine who was the best, not the Olympics. And everybody argues for this. If I want to watch the best amateur players play, there's a tournament that just got canceled called the World Juniors, which I can watch. Sorry. If I want to watch college hockey, I'll take a ride to Princeton. I want to watch minor league hockey. I'll take a ride to Allentown or Hartford or Bridgeport. Insert city here. Whoever your favorite minor league team is close to you. If I want to watch the Olympics, I want the best players available. We can talk up how great that Miracle on Ice was in 1980. And let me tell you, it was great. It was great. One of the greatest upsets in sports history. But in my eyes, you want to know what was greater? And it wasn't the Olympics. It was that World Cup win in 1996. We took our best players that we had available to us, with the exception of Jeremy Roenick, who was, having a problem with his contract at the time. And we beat Russia twice, and we played Canada in that tournament 4 times. Once in the round robin, 3 times in the best of 3. We beat Canada 3 out of 4 times. This wasn't amateurs versus professionals. This was guys like Brett Hull and Tony Amonte and Mike Modano and Billy Guerin and Chris Chelsea and Brian Leach. Went out and beat the likes of guys like Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier and Paul Coffey and Eric Lindros and Steve Yzerman and Joe Sakic. We need more best on best. A best on best victory would be great for this country. I just don't understand why everybody wants this David versus Goliath narrative. Maybe it's because in this country, our 2 biggest sports are 2 sports, one sport that only we play, and another sport that we invented. It was only ours for years, baseball. Now it's gone down to Latin America and to Japan. I guess Americans don't like to be competitive when other countries can be better than us. But I'm telling you, the Olympics should be a best on best. I'm going to tell you right now, I won't watch it. I want to watch minor league hockey or college hockey. I'll go watch it on TV or go to a game close by to me. But sorry, this doesn't excite me. After the World Juniors getting canceled, now you're seeing the best players go over there, but it's still skewed. So yeah, not for me. Not for me. I probably won't watch. Maybe I'll watch the gold medal game.
I can understand where you're coming from. For me, I don't know how to necessarily feel. On one hand, I look at who the US and Canada are contemplating sending, and it does excite me because I want to see how these kids are developing. I want to see them play against adult competition, which they would be playing against adult competition against the likes of Germany, China, Czech Republic, Russia, Sweden. They would be playing against the adults that they would send from that team. But I still feel like it's a letdown. We were so hyped for NHL players returning to the Olympics after nearly a decade-long absence. Now this just feels kind of hollow and like it was taken away from us. Not even the return of Jordan Tutu makes this better in my mind. Yeah, if you've been seeing, he's been politicking to try to get on the Team Canada, and it's actually quite precious, to be quite honest. I am tickled by the idea of a best on best series for NHL players at the end of this upcoming season.
Yes.
I think that would be a great idea.
In all my ranting, that's what I forgot to touch on. Everybody seems to be talking about it. The hockey guy said it. Connor McDavid's calling for it. A lot of guys are calling for it. And I don't mean to interrupt you, Brian. I'm very sorry.
You're okay.
But how cool would it be to have a back-to-back World Junior and then whatever you want to call it, Olympics, North American Olympic Tournament, World Cup of Hockey, take the 12 teams over from there, maybe swap out China for Norway, and have that right after the World Juniors. How cool would that be for the summertime, where I, myself, am starved for hockey when it comes, usually around August?
That would be pretty awesome in my mind. And actually, even more interesting is Gary Bettman is allegedly politicking to try to get the hockey portion of the Olympics moved to the summer games. I don't know if he has that kind of power to do that, especially with, those who are in charge of the Olympics. I don't know if they'd even go for it, but it's still an interesting prospect of, trying to have your cake and eat it too. Send your NHL players, enjoy some hockey during the summertime, and it doesn't disturb the NHL season, which has always been the hang up with Gary Bettman and the owners. So you get the best of both worlds in this regard. But more on this as more news comes out about the Winter Olympics and what that is going to look like. Before we move on to our main topic, before we start talking about our 2 favorite teams, we got to get into some quick hits real quick, so I'll make this as quick as possible. The Pittsburgh Penguins have acquired forward Alex Nylander from Chicago in exchange for Sam Lafferty. Alex Nylander was seen as a top prospect for quite a time with the Chicago Blackhawks, but it seems to be no more in Chicago as he is being sent to the Pittsburgh Penguins for almost nothing. Next, Edmonton Oilers center and great Connor McDavid has tested positive for COVID. He's going to be out for at least the next 7 days. Next, New Jersey goaltender Jonathan Bernier will officially miss the rest of this season after undergoing successful hip surgery. He does plan to play next year. More on that later. Florida forward Sam Bennett has been suspended 3 games after an illegal check to the head. Moving right along to Seattle, we've got 2 injury updates to give you guys. Brandon Tanev is out for the rest of the season after undergoing knee surgery, and Jaden Schwartz is out 4 to 6 weeks after undergoing hand surgery. So Seattle already hurting for forwards, now are out 2 of their better forwards. Moving right along, goaltender Tuukka Rask has signed an AHL contract with the Boston Bruins. He will be playing down for the Providence Bruins, and we'll see if this transitions him back into the NHL for the Boston Bruins. An NHL return does seem imminent. Moving right along, Tampa Bay Lightning forward Nikita Kucherov is officially returning tonight, meaning Thursday, January 6th. So he will be playing in the game tonight against the Calgary Flames. And lastly, moving along to the waiver wire, placed on waivers this past week, we had Victor Rask placed on waivers by Minnesota. We had Nick Ritchie placed on waivers by Toronto. And we also had Riley Nash placed on waivers by Tampa Bay. And he has been claimed by the Arizona Coyotes. Interesting things to note there. But now that we are done with our quick hits here, it's time, as always, once we get to this portion of the show, to pump the brakes.
Not so fast. It's time to pump the brake.
I have no idea if that even played.
It did play, but it cut off.
Yeah, I cut it off because I had no idea if it played or not. This is around the time where my internet just decides to do things or not. But you might have already seen from the thumbnail, we are going to be talking about the New Jersey Devils and New York Rangers here because we're going to be focusing a little bit in depth right now on the difference between these two cities, which you kind of look, across the pond at each team. And you got different circumstances going on with both teams right now. So first and foremost, let's talk about the Rangers first. So focusing on New York first, what else can be said? They're playing fantastic hockey as of late. I think more so the biggest question is, and this is going to be the focus of this segment here with the New York Rangers, should we take the New York Rangers seriously as a playoff team this year and as a potential cup contender? So Tom, let's start with you. Let's look in depth. We're both going to be giving in-depth looks at the New York Rangers right now. You have the floor, sir.
Well, let me just state the obvious here. They're playing good hockey right now. They were the top team in the league for a night. Tampa won the other night, so now they're not anymore points-wise. But they're playing well. All season, Shesterkin's been great. When he was hurt, Georgiev filled in admirably for him. Adam Fox, defending Norris Trophy winner, has been exactly that, a defending Norris Trophy winner. He hasn't missed a beat. Artemi Panarin, same thing. Had a little bit of a slow start, but has been the Artemi Panarin that we all know and love. Late, we had some good hockey from Kaapo Kakko. He's kind of cooled off now. I'm hoping he can bring it back a little bit. Mika Zibanejad also has gotten hot recently, has been putting the puck in net and finding the back of the net. But I don't know if this team is a cup contender right now for the simple reason their depth on the right side to me doesn't scream out cup contender. Your first line right winger is Kaapo Kakko at the present time. Your second line right winger is Barclay Goodrow, who has also been great for them, has been an everyman, been able to slide in everywhere. Your third line right winger is Julien Gauthier, who I still don't know what the hell he's doing there. I don't know why they held on to him. And your fourth line right winger is Dryden Hunt. You look at that right wing depth, and I'm just not so sure that screams Stanley Cup contender to me right now. One thing that every team has lately to win, you don't really need a hotshot goalie anymore. It helps if you were the St. Louis Blues. You just need a goalie who can stop pucks. Igor's a great goalie, top 5 goalie in the league. I don't know if he's Lundqvist level yet, but he's a good goalie. But you need that depth. And I just don't know if that depth is there. When you have Barclay Goodrow as your second-line right winger, when he maybe should be your third-line right winger, it raises some questions a little bit, to me at least. I think that something has to be done with these right wingers. It does. Whether it be revisiting Vitaly Kravtsov when the season in the KHL is over, or pulling a trigger on this potential rumored trade for Riley Smith out of Vegas once Jack Eichel gets back. Now, everybody talks about Barclay Goodrow and how great he was in the playoffs, but I think he was more of just an energy guy in the playoffs. He was out there to just, bring energy, shut other teams' top lines down. I'm looking at Riley Smith's stats before. Guy's a point-per-game player in the playoffs. He brings it when the playoffs start. And maybe that's just what they need. Maybe if they can somehow get Riley Smith to New York, you put Riley Smith with Panarin and Strome. And what I've been seeing lately, the other night, Lafreniere and Goodrow have been great together. So maybe you put Lafreniere and Goodrow as your third line, and you keep Kreider and Kakko up as your top line with Zibanejad. But there's one thing about this team that they also don't have. They have the pieces, but I'm just not so sure they have the experience right now to be that cup contender. Throughout the history of this league, every team on their way to winning the Stanley Cup has hit some roadblocks. Obviously people will bring up St. Louis, but a lot of that core is St. Louis, that core that St. Louis had. St. Louis was a playoff team in the years prior to them winning the Cup. They didn't make it in 18. I don't believe they made it in 17 either. But before then, they were a solid playoff team. You look at Carolina back in 06. They still had a lot of guys left from that 02 team that went to the finals against Detroit. Only one team I can really say has ever done that, and it was the 91 Pittsburgh Penguins, who really had made the playoffs one time and got knocked out in the first round in 6 games against Philly, and then just came out in 91 and just had themselves a hell of a playoffs. The difference with them is they had a lot of the dominoes fall their way as well. But what that team also had was some experience. You had a guy like Joey Mullen, guys like Brian Trottier. You had guys who had been there before. Now, granted, this team has Barclay Goodrow, who's won 2 Stanley Cups. If they can get Sammy Blais back, which I don't know will happen, he was there in St. Louis. If they can bring Riley Smith in, that's a guy who was there, with Vegas on their runs. You have Kreider, who was there when the Rangers were on their runs. Zibanejad was there in 17 with them when they went to the second round. But then you start going down the list. Fox doesn't have any playoff experience, not counting the playoff round. Igor Shesterkin, same thing. Panarin had 2 years in Chicago where they made it, and they didn't make it out of the first round. Then he had the 1 year in Columbus where they swept Tampa, but they got knocked out against Boston. The experience is not there. So I can't sit here now in confidence and say that this team is a Stanley Cup contender. What this team needs to do is go into that Metropolitan Division bracket with teams like Washington and Carolina and maybe even Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh has been getting hot lately. And what they need to do is go in there and slay a dragon in that first round. And if you don't win in the second round, it's no big deal. But win a playoff round and build the young guys' confidence up. Now, I know a lot of people are jumping all over Kakko and Lafreniere. Kakko had a nice little run there. He's quiet now. Lafreniere's kind of been on and off all year, but he's been coming on strong as of lately. What I'll say about them is, too, they need the experience as well. Now, I know everyone says, oh, well, they're the first and second round. Kakko's the second overall pick. Lafreniere's first overall pick. We know that. That's obvious. Every fan of every other team wants to rip them to shreds for that. But one thing that first and second overall picks have had over the years is that they were going into organizations who were going for broke, who said, get out there, do whatever you want, and develop, and we don't care. Kakko came in, with, at best case scenario, his rookie season, a second-line right winger, maybe a third-line right winger. Lafreniere came in as a left winger with Chris Kreider and Artemi Panarin in front of him. I think that they're bringing these guys along slow. I know their stats aren't great, but something that I listened to maybe a few weeks ago on that Cam and Strick podcast, they had Ken Holland on, general manager of the Edmonton Oilers, former general manager of the Detroit Red Wings. And Ken Holland said it best. He said when they brought in Datsuk and Zetterberg, and they started out really, really slow, 10 goals, 30 points their first couple seasons, they didn't care that they didn't dominate out the door. They wanted them to learn from veteran guys like Yzerman and Shanahan and Lidstrom. Now, obviously, I'm not saying Zibanejad and Panarin are at those guys' level. But the whole point was to not have them come in and dominate right away. The whole point for them was that 5 years down the line when they were 24, 25 years old to be able to take the reins of the team and run with it. And that's exactly what happened in Detroit. Look at what happened. Eisman retired. Shanahan left. Fedorov left. Look at 08. Lidstrom was still there. The grind line was still there. But who were the two best players of the Detroit Red Wings when they won their last cup in 08? Datsuk and Zetterberg. Because they were allowed to grow into those roles, and they took the bull by the horns and ran with it. So I think that that's the same principle, the same way of thinking that the Rangers are having with Kakko and Lafreniere. But yeah, to reiterate what I said, win a playoff series this year. That's all they got to do. I don't see them as a cup contender yet. It'd be nice if they went on a nice little 91 Penguin run. But if they don't, no big deal.
Well, a lot of good thoughts in there by Tom. And I'll say my piece now when it comes to the Rangers, and I'll call it as down the middle as I possibly can. And I always think of myself, everyone knows at this point, I'm a Devils fan, but I'm non-biased, or at least as non-biased as I can possibly be. I don't hate the Rangers this year. Let's state the obvious. The Rangers are very good at hockey right now. They have two guys averaging over a point per game right now in Adam Fox and Artemi Panarin. Their top six has been also very productive. Just to point out a few guys in their top six right now that have been super productive: Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, Ryan Strome, and Chris Kreider are a few that have really stuck out in my mind as top producers right now for the New York Rangers. The Rangers also have a pretty strong defense, headed up by reigning Norris Trophy winner Adam Fox, who looks like he may be on his way to win another Norris Trophy, which would make him the first defender since Nicholas Lindstrom to win back-to-back Norris Trophies. And of course, they have one of the best goaltenders in the entire league right now in Igor Shesterkin, who has really come into his own as a potential elite goaltender. And obviously, Rangers fans aren't necessarily ready to say he's the second coming of Henrik Lundqvist, but it is really a strong indication of what Igor Shesterkin has shown so far. And it makes, filling the shoes a little bit easier. But all of that being said, a problem I foresee with the Rangers is potential lineup diversity right now. And Tom had already kind of alluded to that on the right-hand side, but I think it runs a little bit deeper than that at the moment. I was stunned to read this stat when comparing the Devils and the Rangers, because you really look at the Rangers up and down. Rangers are farther ahead in the standings than the Devils are. Devils are seventh. Rangers, last time I checked, were what? They were third or they were second right now, Tom?
You know what? I got to double check. Are you talking about the Metro or are you talking overall?
Metro. In the Metro.
Give me a minute here.
I would check, but my internet decided not to let me at the moment.
Yeah, mine is too. Mine's being a pain in the
while you're checking that, I was stunned when I was comparing this stat. The Devils have more players right now than the Rangers that have 10 or more points. The Devils have 12 players with 10 or more points. The Rangers only have 9 players with 10 or more points right now. They have relatively the same point totals that they have scored this year, as well as goal totals that they have scored this year. Beyond
I got your answer, by the way. First in the Metro right now.
Sorry, first in the Metro, because the Capitals have been sliding the past couple of games. Yeah. Don't worry. We're getting to the part where you're about to be a little sad. But beyond that, they're also not getting nearly the production out of their top 2 growing NHL players in their lineup right now, namely Alexis Lafreniere and Kaapo Kakko. Now, this also kind of hurts Rangers fans right now because they're both kind of like points of comparison, and they're always kind of compared in pairs. If you look at the production that Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes have, for the Devils versus what Alexis Lafreniere and Kaapo Kakko have for the Rangers, there's no comparison. Hischier and Hughes have produced way more for the Devils than the other two. Now, that granted, Hischier and Hughes are relied on significantly more on this Devils team than Lafreniere and Kakko are relied on for the Rangers. There's no doubt about that. But I'll also be getting to that tandem in Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes in just a little bit. Now, let's start with Lafreniere. Lafreniere, although he's only in his second year in the league, only has 11 points in 34 games. He hasn't missed a game, 8 of which of those points are goals, which is pretty good to see. He's finding the back of the net. It's not the expectation of a number one overall pick, and also why many have unfairly, and notice how I say unfairly, named him a potential bust. I don't understand why people are calling him a bust so early on. Now, I don't think that is fair at all. He missed development time because of COVID, but he makes the right moves on the ice, and he's just having trouble finding the back of the net right now. Something that Jack Hughes had trouble with last year and the year before that, but he has no trouble with now. He's a point per game player. Lafreniere is eventually going to be that type of player, and I actually have full confidence that he will. His time to shine with the Rangers will come soon, but maybe it's not this year, and maybe that's also okay for the Rangers. Now, on the other flip of the coin, let's talk about Kaapo Kakko. Kaapo Kakko, and I apologize if this comes off too harsh. I will say that first and foremost before I get eviscerated. But he needs to step up as a third-year player, especially when he's playing on the same line as Chris Kreider and Artemi Panarin. When you're playing with those two guys, the expectation is you're producing with them.
He's not playing with them, though. He's playing with Kreider and Zibanejad.
And that's true.
But look at them. Kreider's having a career year. Zibanejad is arguably a top 10 center in the league. You're not asking him to carry the line right now either.
No, but you're asking him to produce a little bit, and that's kind of what I'm alluding to on this one. Because if you look at Kakko's, point totals right now, he's also sitting at 11 points in over 30 games played. And like I said, I know it might come off as harsh, but to me, it's just not cutting it. I will be very curious to see what type of deal the Rangers offer Kaapo Kakko after this year. Because based on what he has done up to this point, I don't know if I see a reason for the Rangers to offer him a long-term deal. A bridge deal might be more appropriate for Kaapo Kakko at this point. I don't think this is the best he's going to be. I think he is destined to be more than what he has shown so far. I think that he can be more of a finisher, that he can play better hockey, but he just hasn't shown it yet. He's been, he started off hot, started to kind of shush the naysayers, if you will, but he's been quiet, and he's been quiet for way too long this season. Way too stagnant. Even more quiet than Mika Zibanejad's quiet moments sometimes, which, welcome back to the league, Mika Zibanejad. It's that time again where he starts scoring hat trick after hat trick. But if this is the best that Kakko's going to give right now, I think Rangers fans should be worried. Now, I mentioned before that the Rangers only have 9 guys with 10 or more points, which means that there are plenty of players currently underperforming on this team. So let's point a few of those guys out. Philip Hedl, 7 points in 30 games, which is the same point total currently as bottom feeders such as Kevin Rooney and Dryden Hunt. It's not cutting it. He's only 22 years old, but there is far more expectation for Philip Hedl being a top 9 forward. I'm sorry, 7 points is just, especially after what he showed last year, this is a regression. This is a major regression in his game right now. Next, Keandre Miller, although playing very, very good defense as of late, he only has 6 points in 34 games. He's got to work on himself, on getting himself integrated in the offensive zone. And I can already hear the chirps right now. Brian, he's a defensive defenseman. Yes, but if you look on the other side of the coin in terms of the Devils, so is Jonas Siegenthaler. And Jonas Siegenthaler has more points currently than Keandre Miller. Now, that being said, can you compare the two? Not really. Keandre Miller has a lot of potential. So does Jonas Siegenthaler, for that matter. But I actually do think a little bit higher in terms of Keandre Miller. And I know he can do better than this right now. When all is said and done, the Rangers are still a good team right now. There's no denying that. Are they a cup contender this year, though? Not with the problems as I just mentioned above. This team has some growing to do, and I feel like they're too thin at the bottom of their forward depth right now to consider them a contender. You look at previous cup contenders over the past number of years, what have they had? Forward depth out the wazoo. If the Rangers make it far in the playoffs, it's not because of forward depth. It's going to be because Igor Shesterkin will literally carry that team on his back. And so will Artemi Panarin, so will Mika Zibanejad, so will Chris Kreider.
Well, that's what they need. Where have they learned? Haven't they learned this lesson before? Relying on a goalie to win them playoff games. We learned this lesson.
Destined to repeat itself. I mean, I'm just looking at Daily Faceoff right now, which should always be taken with a grain of salt. But you look at their top six. It's a pretty solid top six. Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, Capo Caco, Alexis Lafreniere, Ryan Strome, Barclay Goodrow. Not a bad looking top six at all. Mm-hmm. Barclay Goodrow is kind of your Swiss Army knife, can play top 6 minutes.
That's pretty much because Panarin's not there. That's the only reason why.
And that's true. And that's only because Panarin's not there. That's absolutely true. But then you look at the bottom 6. And that's when things kind of become a little eek. Third line right now with Panarin out is Dryden Hunt, Philip Hedl, Julian Gauthier. Your fourth line, keep in mind, one of these guys would normally come out of the lineup. Kevin Rooney, Greg McKegg, Ryan Reeves.
Yeah. Keep in mind also, if Sammy Blais didn't get slew-footed,
which also I was also gonna mention that too. This Rangers team is desperately missing Sammy Blais, and I really like the play of Sammy Blais early on this season. It was a damn shame that he ripped apart his ACL in that freak accident, and it's just. And
they didn't play he said, she said with Vitaly Kravtsov either. So
no, this is a team that is missing some key contributors right now, and it shows. And it just also shows that they need maybe a little bit of prospect depth right now, and they need to still build from within. And what they have from within right now is just not cutting it. Julian Gauthier is not cutting it. No. He wasn't the prospect that they thought he would be. But
like I said, they didn't draft him either. They brought him in in that Brady Shea deal with the Hurricanes.
And that's true.
It was kind of we'll take this guy off your hands and give him another chance.
Yeah, that's true. So let's move off of the Rangers. Let's stop beating a dead horse with another dead horse. Let's move on to my favorite team, and let's talk a little bit about the New Jersey Devils. More on the Devils right now. So this is a team that prior to the COVID break in mid-December, they lost 10 of 12 games. That's pretty terrible. General manager Tom Fitzgerald said the team had been dealing with a flu that went around the entire locker room. And there were some people that, believed it. Other people that were just like, nah, they need to fire Lindy Ruff, which I never understood that. It's his second year. Let the guy work. And a lot of what he was implementing was working. So, relax. What Tom Fitzgerald had said about, an illness going around the locker room turned out that was true, because when the Devils returned from that break, they won 3 straight games, 2 of which against top 10 teams. They beat the Edmonton Oilers in overtime. They beat the Washington Capitals in overtime. The Washington Capitals, of which, getting to my next point, they were finally looking healthy when disaster struck. Dougie Hamilton was placed on IR recently with a fractured jaw and just underwent jaw surgery after taking a puck to the face early in a game against Washington. He only saw about 2 minutes and 30 seconds of ice time until he got hit in the face. And the Devils still won that game without having Dougie Hamilton in their lineup. Nico Hischier was day-to-day with a lower body injury. Broken foot was speculated, but it turned out not to be true. He blocked a shot early on in the Washington game about midway through the second period, continued that game, played with that nagging injury, and scored eventually the game-winning goal in overtime. So kudos to you, Nico Hischier. And to make matters worse, you have Pavel Zacha, Yegor Sharangovich, and Andreas Janssen now. So you basically have the entire second and third line out right now after being placed on COVID protocol. It's a 5-day protocol because they're asymptomatic, but it's killed their momentum. And to boot, you've also had inconsistent play of late by starting goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood. So with that being said, with the inconsistent play of Mackenzie Blackwood and the rampant injuries plaguing the Devils as of late, what do the Devils need to do to right the ship? Is the franchise going in the right direction after seeing what's going on? So let's take an in-depth look. Tom, let's start with you.
All right. I mean, I'm going to be, I guess, a little more brief with this one. I don't think there's really anything they can do to right the ship. And let me just tell you why. Look at the division they're in. You have Washington, you have Carolina, you have the Rangers, and you have Pittsburgh, who just seems to be beating the crap out of everybody lately. So you have those 4 teams ahead of you. Now, there's always that outside chance for that wild card, but look over at the Atlantic Division. You have Tampa. You have the Toronto Maple Leafs. You have the Florida Panthers. And you have the Boston Bruins, who I have been saying this, played a hell of a lot less games than everybody else, and now are finding their groove. And I said the Bruins were going to start climbing the standings. It's not the Devils' fault. It's no fault of their own. You just happen to have 8 better teams than them right now. I'm not saying this is a Ranger fan saying Rangers are great and the Devils suck. I'm not saying this. I'm calling it like I see it. Those 8 teams at the present time are just better than the Devils, whether it be through talent, whether it be through experience. It's just the way it is. I don't think they're doing anything wrong. I think they're going right along with how they wanted to do it, with one little, I guess, asterisk or whatnot. I think the Devils kind of wanted to do what the Rangers are doing in a weird way. You know, they had their Zibanejad / Panarin guy there in Taylor Hall 2 years ago. Taylor Hall was a huge reason they picked Jack Hughes. The whole plan with them was to do a Stamkos San Luis type thing in Hall and Hughes and keep them together. What happened? The crap hit the fan and Hall wanted out. Now Hall's in Boston after a stop in Arizona. They have a great prospect pool. They have a great pipeline, you know. You have guys like, you have Hughes and you have Hischier. Hughes is finally coming along. You have a guy like Dawson Mercer, who's played very well. You have Alexander Holtz, who started up top and saw a point per game in the minors. I think you'll see Holtz on the team next year. You have Luke Hughes over in Michigan, who's having himself a great year. Jack's brother. You have all these guys. But you can't just put all these young guys together, throw them out there, especially the forward core, and just say, oh, okay, here you go. We're gonna win a Stanley Cup now. Granted, you have that veteran presence back on the blue line and a guy like Dougie Hamilton and a guy like PK Subban. I like Dougie Hamilton. Dougie Hamilton's a good defenseman. But this is Dougie Hamilton's 3rd stop already. I'm not sure if Dougie Hamilton was ever going to be a Norris Trophy winner or a franchise rock that, you know, a team was going to beg to keep. When the Bruins rebuilt their depth in the mid 2010s, they shipped him out in the snap of a fingers. Carolina let him walk last year. Dougie Hamilton's a good defenseman, don't get me wrong. But I don't know if Dougie Hamilton's a Norris Trophy caliber defenseman either. So I still think the Devils are going in the right direction. But with the Devils, right now, patience is virtue. You got to think, and I remember a Rangers radio analysis, Dave Maloney, saying this. Eventually, Pittsburgh's going to get old. Eventually, Washington's going to get old. Eventually, the Boston Bruins are going to get old. And eventually, Tampa's going to run out of steam and the well's going to dry up down there. It's just a matter of when it happens. And when these teams start falling by the wayside, I think that'll be the time for the Devils to start becoming that playoff team again. And what's on their side to become that playoff team again is now you'll have time to develop a guy like Luke Hughes. You'll have time to develop a guy like Alexander Holtz. Dawson Mercer will have time to only get better. Jack Hughes looking like a point-per-game guy right now. Will hopefully still be a point-per-game guy. My only issue with them is Nico Hischier. I think he's having a good year this year, but I look at his stats, and after that great rookie season that he had, he seems to have only trended downward. And I think maybe giving him the C was a little premature. Maybe that C should have been given to Dougie Hamilton, even though I just trashed him, sort of. But maybe that should have been the case. I remember the Tampa Bay Lightning did it with Vinny Lecavalier early in his career, and he wound up getting it stripped. Maybe what they need to do to increase Hischier's confidence is take that C off his jersey and just let him play. Not let him have this responsibility to lead a young and upcoming team that maybe has too many lofty expectations right now. But yeah, I think the Devils are going in the right direction, but I just don't think there's anything they can do to right the ship right now, just looking at the teams that are above them. So I'm going to turn it over to you right now.
I understand where you're coming from, and I think you're right in a lot of ways. I think the Devils will ultimately be fine. The injury bug gets to many teams around the league, and it's just their turn. And ultimately, the franchise is going in the right direction. Going back to the injury bug, they currently have 4 players on IR, 3 of which that are on LTIR at the moment. Miles Wood, Jonathan Bernier, as I alluded to it before, and Tice Thompson at the moment. losing Dougie Hamilton is a big blow, but Damon Severson and PK Subban can carry the load in his absence, and they have played pretty well this season. And Severson specifically has stepped up really nicely in Dougie Hamilton's absence as of late. And the defense in general has also played nicely. Jonas Siegenthaler has been fantastic this season. One of the best defensive defensemen in the league this year. The franchise is absolutely going in the right direction. And I don't know. I think Hischier is having himself a nice season so far. He's got 20 points in 28 games. He had a rough year last year because of COVID and one or two nagging injuries. But since, he's developed nicely as a really good two-way forward. Many of which saying he is becoming a star in his own right. And I don't know. I think he is the right captain for this team right now. He's a captain that's going to grow with this team. I almost see it almost like a Jonathan Taves, where he was named early on in his career, and it's something that you kind of grow with. You don't always have to be the most outspoken person.
I think Jonathan Taves is. Listen, it's not a knock on his year. I'm just going to say Jonathan Taves, I think, is and was a hell of a lot better hockey player than Nico Hischier is. I mean,
oh no, I'm not saying that. Oh no, I think Taves is a better hockey player for sure. I'm saying more so leadership wise. I kind of see leadership qualities that are similar at the moment. That's more so what I was going with there. Jack Hughes, currently a point per game player, coming into tonight, 17 points in 17 games. Now playing in his 18th game this season. He's got an assist tonight, so make that 18 points in 18 games so far. And 10 of which have been in the last 5 games. I think that puts Hughes, the whole Hughes is a bust, talks right to bed. And he's a top center in this league, and he will for a while to come. Speaking of centers, that's the Devils' strongest position at the moment. Their center depth is very good and also very young. They have a very good young core of centers right now, and I'll go in order from first line to fourth line. Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, Dawson Mercer, Michael McLeod. All former first-round picks, if you're following at home. All 4 have played an important role this season. Nico has been a fantastic leader for this team and also has been scoring as of late. Jack, well, he's been the Devils' best scorer along with Jesper Bratt this season. Dawson Mercer has been the dynamic young rookie creating opportunities and plays from out of nowhere and from nothing, it seems like. And Mike McLeod, although a lot of people kind of see him as a first-round bust and, not a guy that ultimately was a top 6 forward, well, he's an important player in his own right, and he's been playing fast-paced hockey, and he's been a key penalty killer. He's also been one of the Devils' best face-off guys, along with Nico Hischier. This team has a core that could bring the Devils to the promised land, but they are not without their questions right now. I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Mackenzie Blackwood, the starting goaltender of the New Jersey Devils. Although he could be dealing with nagging injuries, he has been off to one of the worst starts amongst starting goaltenders in this league. And I mentioned his stats a few weeks back, but alas, there's been no improvement. There's talks that he's still dealing with his heel injury from the beginning of the season, which he had prior to the start of this season. But even still, he needs to be better if he's going to be the de facto number 1. Bad bounces, unlucky bounces, it doesn't matter what at the end of the day. What matters is what's on the stat sheet. Is he the future of the New Jersey Devils? Well, to be quite honest, I'm not really sure anymore. And I'm not sure if the front office feels that way too. Now, let me also say this. When healthy, Blackwood was fantastic last year. He was very good. He has shined in moments this year. But the stat line says otherwise at the moment. And you can go look up those stats yourself to really believe me. If you're one of those people that does, try to jump off a bridge to defend Blackwood any chance you get. I try to defend every player any chance I get to. I usually defend Blackwood. I cannot defend his play as of late. When he does make a good save here and there, yeah, I throw him a bone and I say, yeah, that was an awesome save. Do that more often. when you really look at it, besides Blackwood, this team, the New Jersey Devils, has had very bad luck the past few years having backup goaltenders either get badly hurt or retire. Just to name the three, Corey Schneider, Corey Crawford, and now Jonathan Bernier. Bernier has stated that he plans to play for the Devils next year, but should the Devils be looking beyond both of them at the moment? Maybe. There is a silver lining here. Tom was talking about prospect depth with the Devils, which the Devils do have in spades right now. But there are a couple prospects that Tom did not mention that will eventually help the Devils. And that's goaltending prospects. Nico Daws and Akira Schmid. Now, Akira Schmid may not actually be anything. He has been the AHL's best goaltender as of late, though. Look at his stats. He's been unreal. But Nico Daws has some very interesting potential. He was drafted in the second round last year by the New Jersey Devils, and there might be something there with Nico Daws. If the Devils were to move on from Blackwood, they could stall for a little bit until Nico Daws is ready and pick up a goalie this offseason as a stopgap, such as there are three names that kind of jumped out in my mind that are currently available as UFAs after the season's over. Darcy Kemper, Joonas Korpisalo, or even Jack Campbell if Toronto does not extend him, if they decide to just let him walk in free agency. Either way, whether Blackwood's in the plans for next year or not, or even beyond and going forward, Blackwood needs to step up in a big way if the Devils have any chance of reclaiming this season. The offense has been very good lately, and so has the defense. This all falls on Blackwood's shoulders. No pressure. But do I think that Blackwood can regain his glory? I think he can. I'm ridiculously optimistic in that end, but we're just going to have to see. That's why the games are played. Whew! We talked quite a bit about both of those teams. It's time to start wrapping up this show. It's time, as always, to talk some high performance.
Your I-80 Sports High Performance Players of the Week.
Getting towards wrapping up our show, so we're going to talk some players of the week real quick. Tom, who do you want to highlight here?
Just going to go real quick with three. Cale Makar, beautiful OT winner the other night against the Hawks, reminiscent of Bobby Orr in the 72 finals when he broke Rangers fans' hearts. I obviously wasn't alive yet, but still, beautiful goal. I'm going to be a little bit of a homer. Don't kill me. Mika Zibanejad dominated against Tampa on Sunday afternoon. Hat trick. Looking like the Mika of old, or the Mika of, okay, we're halfway through the season. I'm going to start playing hockey now. And I'm gonna be the first line center that everybody said I was before the season, said I wasn't during the first 2 months of the season, and everyone's going to say I am again. And my last one, French-Canadian left winger, Jonathan Huberdeau. 10 points in 5 games, having himself a nice little run. Huberdeau doesn't get talked a lot about, but in terms of French-Canadian players in the league right now, he may be the best one. The league hasn't seen a French-Canadian star in a while, and he's sort of a quiet French-Canadian star. He's not a Mario Lemieux, but I like the way he's played.
Yeah, and I agree with all three of your picks. Go back and watch that Cale Makar goal if you're able to. You'll easily be able to find it. You know what? You were a homer with Mika Zibanejad. I'm going to be a homer here. Jack Hughes. The kid is blossoming into a star and has looked fantastic since the COVID break. So I said before how he has a point tonight, which makes it 18 points in 18 games now. Well, scratch that. He now has another assist tonight. So now he has 19 points in 18 games. He is officially over a point per game at the moment for the New Jersey Devils, which the Devils haven't seen a player like that since Taylor Hall left this team. And who knows? Sky's the limit potentially with Jack Hughes. I think he is finally breaking through and is proving why he was the number one pick from 2 years ago. Or 3 years ago at this point, actually. 2, 3. I don't know. COVID's been too long. Moving right along, though. Tristan Jarry for the Pittsburgh Penguins is another one to me that has been turning heads as of late. I'm going to read you his game line from the past 17 games. He's 15-1-1. 15 wins, 1 loss, 1 overtime loss in 17 games, with a sub 1.75 goals against average and a very impressive 950 plus save percentage. Just wow. He has been utterly fantastic. And the reason why the Penguins are possibly well on their way to win their 10th straight game tonight. They're currently up 3-1 against the Flyers. Maybe I just jinxed it. Who knows? Lastly, let's keep on the goaltender train. Juuse Saros for the Nashville Predators has been another goaltender that's been playing out of his mind as of late. He has been one of the better goaltenders in the league. He's the reason why the Nashville Predators currently sit atop of the Central Division standings currently. Tom, did you think by this point this season that the Nashville Predators would be in first place in the Central?
I did not, but you know what it is? I've said it before and I'll say it again. That Central is kind of skewed right now in terms of games played and games at hand. And, you're seeing, I said it before, you're seeing the Colorado Avalanche, rise up lately. So I think they're playing good. We didn't think Nashville would be that good of a team this year, but I think they're playing well. But it's January right now. Once all these games are made up, we'll have a clearer picture of it.
Yeah, that's true. So we have come to the end of our episode, but as always, it's time for our question of the day. Question of the day here is simple. We're going to go back to the well on this one from earlier this episode. Are the New York Rangers Stanley Cup contenders this year? Tom, let's keep it simple.
I'm going to say, as a Ranger fan, I'm going to say no. I think that we don't know where they're going to finish yet. Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty in that division. Washington's cooled. Carolina is still pretty good, and Pittsburgh is on fire and getting Malkin back. Are the Rangers going to make the playoffs? I think so. Can the Rangers win a playoff round? I think so. But I'm going to tell you what, it would take a lot of breaks to go their way to make it to win more than a round or two, to make it to the finals, and then to ultimately win a Stanley Cup. If they were to get to the finals, if they played a team, for argument's sake, like, say, the, Minnesota Wild, who are just hanging on to their playoff lives right now, I think that I'd be confident as a Ranger fan that they could beat the Minnesota Wild in a 7-game series. If they were to go to the finals and against Gerard Gallant's old club, the Vegas Golden Knights, I don't know. If they were to go to a conference final and play a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, I don't know. But do I think that, say, if the Rangers got matched up with the Washington Capitals in the first round, could they pull off an upset? I think so. I think that's within reason. So, yeah, playoff team, yes. Cup contender, not yet. But I think that in the next 3 to 5 years, they will be a cup contender and could potentially win 1 or maybe 2.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple. This year as a cup contender? No. Will they make the playoffs? I think there's a very good likelihood of that. In the near future, being a potential cup contender, I would say there is a very good chance of that. And I think the Rangers fans and Devils fans in general have a lot to be excited for the next couple of years, especially when thinking about this rivalry that is only going to get better and better and better to watch. But guys, as always, what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with our takes? Let us know in the comment section down below. And while you're there, drop a like, subscribe to our channel if you like the content that we're producing, if you like what we're talking about on a weekly basis. And if you like our content as well, you can check out our website down below, i80sports.com, for our NHL, NFL, MLS, NCAA football, NBA, and now wrestling coverage. We do a live stream almost every single week watching AEW Dynamite, so you don't want to miss that every single Wednesday night going forward. And if you're on Twitter, make sure you hit up our Twitter down below and drop a follow at i80_sportsNHL. And if you're following already, thank you guys so much, because we greatly value all your support. Without you guys, we can't do this on a weekly basis. But it's time to keep watching hockey this week. Happy New Year to you guys. Hopefully 2022 only brings the best to you guys out there, and hopefully brings, the best for watching hockey out there. But as always, guys, I'm Brian. He's been Tom. This has been another episode of NHL on i80 Sports.